professional. No, goddamn it. You're muted, what? Endearing, it's iconic. Cheese breaks, fake breaks, staying hydrated. It's Shorty time. She's a fucking delight. Trial watching, trials and tribulations. It's Camp Shorty calling all nations. What are you drinking? Shall we skip this part? Left or right-handed? Shit, she slid it to the start. She's a fucking professional. Yo, goddamn it. You're muted, what? Endearing, it's iconic. Cheese breaks, fake breaks, staying hydrated. It's Shorty time. She's a fucking delight. Psychology corner. Let's learn about stuff. New Miss Shorty music. Calling their bluff. Best hashtag, best community. We've got the best mods. A safe, supportive sanctuary full of fun and love. Rock out with your cats out. Curse all you want. And here at Camp Shorty, we even say cut. She's a fucking professional. You goddamn it. You're muted, what? Endearing, it's iconic. Cheese breaks, fake breaks, staying hydrated. It's Shorty time. She's a fucking delight. Hey, Shorties, what's doing, y'all? Get in here, Shorties. Let's fucking go. Camp Shorty. Camp Shorty. Camp Shorty. Camp Shorty.
Hi, Shorties. Oh my goodness, I just pressed something in my earballs. Wow. An inauspicious beginning. I tapped my earbud by mistake and got noise in my ears. Hi, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Boston Brooks here. Amazing. That's Life Artist's friend, I believe. Thanks for joining. Micah's here. Pokemon. Shelley was chair boogieing. Sim is here. Akasha, good to see you. Quincy, hi. Curious Law Trooper, thank you for joining. Excuse me. What else? Who else? What else? Joey, of course. LFG. Yes. Dizzy's here. Hi, Dizzy. Good to see you. Matilda, hi. Lovely. So, what are we doing tonight? Very special guest. The profiler. Hi, I'm listening. That's okay. You can listen. Hey, the profiler. We have a cool feature with our stream elements that if you hit, I think stream elements is in the house. I will soon find out, won't we? If you hit ! lurk, it will put up a little prompt to say, hey, the profiler is here and lurking. Yes. Hi, Holly. Good to see you. Colors, where did you go? I ended up in Melnik, Bulgaria. You always go to the most exotic destinations. Thanks, Joey. Joey's showing how that works. So, back. Oh, hi, Rita. Sorry, I should have known. Hi. Well, you're trying to trip me up. Sav's back also. Beautiful. Amber's here. Lovely. Rita. There. Yes. Got you. Okay. My brain. So Lori Vallow Daybell is set to represent herself in her trial, in the trial, where she is being put on trial for her part in the murder of her husband, estranged husband, Charles Vallow. Obviously, Alex Cox, it's believed, Lori's brother, pulled the trigger there. I wonder whether our guest Joe Schmoe has some questions about that in and of itself. So many questions. Joe was raised as a member, and I'm sure I'm going to get my verbiage wrong. So, Joe, please correct me on anything I say wrong here. We're going to have a good conversation because Joe was raised as a Mormon. I believe he is no longer practicing part of the church. My verbiage is off. I can't wait to be educated. This is what we're doing. I was raised in a very science-based atheist household. I am very spiritual now, despite that. And I'm really interested to talk to Joe about all things Lori Vallow Daybell, about coming out of the Latter-day Saints, out of the Mormon life, and all the stuff. Joe's going to be boots on the ground. He already has been in the courtroom with this woman. Shall I stop with the horrendous introduction and bring our very special guest, Joe Schmoe? Wait, what am I doing there? Why did it just do that? Hang on. Gosh, hang on. Again, before I even do that, let's do this. We've got a background. That was my intro background. Joe Schmoe. Hi. Wait. Still no. Ta-da.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Lisa.
Hi. Hi,
Hi.
Joe. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Please set me on some sort of road to correct terminology and a better understanding of everything. Can you tell Camp Shorty, the Shorties, a bit about your upbringing? But chat, Joe has a channel. If you haven't already subscribed, I'm addicted. I'm watching all of Joe's back catalog. He's an amazing YouTuber on the up. So that's first. Next, Joe, tell us a bit about your life starting as a Mormon.
Well, first of all, for the YouTube thing, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I am just a novice. I'm just like a brand new baby beginner YouTube channel. So I don't even have
Got to
1,000
start somewhere.
subs. But
You've got to
the
start
people,
somewhere.
yeah, right. Thank you so much. So I was raised in the Mormon church, actually not born into it. My parents joined when I was just a wee lad of like around 2 years old. They joined. So that's basically being raised in it, right?
Yes.
And then when you're, so all of the things that Mormon was raised in. So you're not supposed to go to any dances until you're at least 14 years old, like the school dances and things like that. You can't go to until you're 14, and you can't go on any dates until you're 16. And then when you do that, you're only supposed to date other Mormons, right? So all of those things, all of those rules, all of those guidelines, don't drink anything with caffeine in it, don't have anything with tobacco, all of the guidelines are indoctrinated into you. But then when you turn 19, as a young man, you're supposed to go on a 2-year mission, and you're supposed to go out to wherever the church sends you. They send you a letter that says you go to Denmark, or you go to Spain, or mine was you go to Provo, Utah, which was a really weird calling. But at that
Can I
point in
interrupt you?
time,
Sorry, can I
yeah, go
interrupt for a
ahead.
moment?
Yes.
Prince Lover wondered what state, where were you
I,
doing?
I was in Indiana, Lafayette, Indiana.
There you go. Thank you. Carry on.
Yes.
So you went to
And
Utah.
yeah, well, no, I didn't go to Utah. I was called to go to Utah.
Okay.
But that's a good question, though. That's a really good question, because they talk about Utah Mormons the way that Utah Mormons practice their religion versus other areas of the country. And I think that extends to the entire Mormon belt. So it's Arizona, Utah, and Idaho. If you think about this part of the country that goes back to the early days of the church, when Brigham Young brought the people out across the plains in the covered wagons, and they found Salt Lake City, and he said, this is the place. Like, that extends up north and extends south from Salt Lake City, which coincidentally, Charles Vallow was shot and killed here in Chandler, Arizona. And the kids were, and Tammy was, up in Rexburg, Idaho. So that's pretty much like the south end and the north end of the Mormon belt.
Right.
But they also talk about California Mormons and how California Mormons are different, which I'm only mentioning because that's where Lori was raised. Lori Cox and the
Yes.
Cox family were from Southern California. And when I interviewed Megan Connor, who is Lori's cousin, she would talk about spending summers out there at Lori's house and how they had a swimming pool and they had a really fancy house. But they also did some funky things like grabbing each other's body parts and talking a lot about sex. So, so Mormons from different parts of the country, and it may not just be because they're in different parts of the country. It could be because of the way they're raised, but they have different levels of obeying the rules and being lax with the rules and those sort of things.
So
But anyway,
actually,
go ahead.
Carry on. No, I was just going to say, can we take a little sidestep there? Do you
Yeah.
believe then that idiosyncrasy of the Cox family was religion related, or do you think maybe it was just that they were a little inappropriate in general? Or
I think it could be both. Two things can be
Okay.
true at the same time, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
I know for a fact that I've had people, members of the church that lived in California that were notedly more lax on the rules of the church. Like they would drink wine, which is a big no alcohol in the Mormon church, none, zero. But they would in Southern California. They're like, it was kind of an acceptable thing, an acceptable practice. So, so anyway, I got that calling in when I was 19, and I was actually within a week or so of having to go out there, and I had to get up in church, and I had to give a talk, and I had to talk about my belief in the church, and when you do that, when you give a talk in the Mormon church, you get up and you say certain things, but you also talk about the principles of the church. And I said a couple things, and when they came out of my mouth, it just felt wrong. I was like, I don't know that I believe this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And I'm definitely not sure that I can go out into the world and I can try and convince other people that they're true, especially if I don't believe it myself. So boom, I was gone.
So what did that I was gone look like? How did you?
Well, because I was living with my parents in the house, we had I have 5 brothers and sisters. Actually, my older sister was already gone. She actually went to Brigham Young University. That was me moving out of the house and basically being disowned by my dad. My mom didn't disown me, but my dad did for a while. We have since reconciled and very extensively reconciled, but at the time he disowned me, and so I was just living on my own, working at Wendy's and making minimum wage. I think that was what, $3.15 an hour at the time, maybe $3.35.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a huge step. And what then how did your personal religious beliefs, how did that look for the years following? What did you?
So when I moved out and I moved down to the next county south of me to get away from my family, I met a young lady where I was working, and we fell in love. But she was raised in a Pentecostal type of religion. So her philosophies and those of her family and her friends and the people around her were that Mormonism was evil.
Ooh.
But we fell in love anyway, and we started going to her church, and there was a period of conflict there where I had a hard time truly mentally leaving all of those religious
Yes.
beliefs that I was raised with
Yes.
and that were indoctrinated into me, because Pentecostal and Mormon are like not two sides of the same coin. They're two totally different animals. And
Mm.
to get rid of that, it was a struggle, and it was a conflict in our relationship, because by that time we had a young one, my oldest son, and we were married. And my mom was actually the one that made us get married, when she found out that she was pregnant. Not made us, but strongly pushed
Encouraged.
us in that direction. Yes. Yeah. So that
Wow.
yeah, there were some years of conflict there, still shedding those beliefs that I was indoctrinated with.
Absolutely. And to sort of I guess bring us up to speed now, where do you stand now, you know, a couple of years later, with your your spirituality or your belief in things like that? Have you got a more moderate view? Do you denounce all things Mormon? How does that look these days?
All things Mormon, their with their doctrine, yes. Um, I believe that there are good Mormons, and I believe that there are Mormons that believe that they're Christian, and there are a lot of quote unquote good Mormons, and that's actually one of the draws that brings people into the church. Is because how can all these people that appear to be such good people and do such good things, how can they be wrong, type of thing, you know? Come to Wednesday night volleyball, come play volleyball with us on Wednesday night and have some fun, and look at all the fun we're having. It's funny because Matt Parker and Trey Stone with South Park have several Mormon episodes on there, and that's one of the episodes. Is they they invite, I don't even remember what one of the characters on South Park they invite over, but Randy goes, "We're having family home evening in our house now," after he sees this Mormon family having quote unquote family home evening. And they're not even Mormons, but he goes, "That's our religion now. We're now Mormon." Just because it's so inviting, they're so social, they're so outgoing, they're so much fun, and they're quote unquote good people. Um, but it to relate it to Lori Vallow Daybell and her cult with Chad, you get indoctrinated when you're young, or when you join the church when you're older. Chad and Lori both were in the church from the beginning, but because of the way that and my son and I were having this discussion last night when he heard that I was coming on with you. We were talking about, and he was challenging me on, well, how is Mormonism like a cult? And I had to think about it quite a bit, and the indoctrination aspect of it is a big one. But it also lends itself, it has over the years, history has proven that it lends itself towards weird offshoot cults like Chad and Lori's that are
Right.
truly evil. So it doesn't matter how good you appear, like how many times you invite me to come and play volleyball. If you're unaliving your spouses and your kids,
There's a
there's
problem.
nothing. Yeah, it might be a little problem.
So there's also excuse me, I'm just choking myself. Carry on for a second, Joe.
Carry on. Yeah, and there have been other cults in the history of the church too. Like off the top of my head, I can't name them, but there was that dude that was marrying 13-year-olds and taking them off down to Mexico and essaying them, and all horrible, evil things have been done in the name of offshoot cults of the LDS church.
Because I've been listening to, staying on top of your interviews or your conversations with Krisha, who is Kay and Larry Woodcock's daughter, who and she has mentioned, and I wasn't aware, the flip side of whether it's the Church of Satan, right? Is that
Yes.
an actual part of the Mormons,
No,
or
no,
is
no.
that
That's
cultic?
yeah,
That's a
no, that's
cultic,
another
right?
offshoot cult. Yes. But they
Right.
do require that members of that are also members of the actual LDS church.
That's wild. That's wild.
She blows my mind like every time we talk, and that Glenn Pace memo is just mind blowing. The things that he found when he investigated, and he was like a higher up, like one of the top 100 members of the church, like in the top 100 of the leadership. And when he wrote that memo in the early 90s and found satanic rituals going on with church members.
And quite distressing that despite his very comprehensive memo, I mean, you guys are still what, two-thirds of the way through that, because
Yep.
Cressy just has such a wealth of knowledge. She's really deep dived into this, as having been raised a Catholic. This was all new to her, but that Glenn Pace never actually, even with mandatory reporting and that sort of thing, never went to the authorities with some really gruesome and horrific stories from victims of 80. Was it 80 or so?
I think he interviewed 60.
60. I knew it was multiples of 10. So that's horrifying. So Joe, when the initial story of JJ and Tylee being missing, and Chad Daybell and then Lori Vallow, right, being in Hawaii, was that where your interest was piqued, or how did you become interested in this overall case?
So basically it was just as kind of like a true crime buff, because I started watching the case over on Bob Motta's channel at Defense Diaries.
Yes.
And we watched that together, and we made fun of Chad. And we couldn't watch Lori's trial because hers was just broadcast audio at the end of the day. They didn't broadcast live, but they did chats. So we're all, we all watched Karen Reed together. We all watched Hannah Gutierrez together, and we all watched Chad Daybell's together. So that was crazy. And he's just such an oddball. I really don't understand what Lori's attraction in him was, because she was such an outgoing, like, I have to be this center of attention, it's all about me, narcissist type of person. I just don't, I still don't see to this day what her attraction to Chad is. I really don't. Now
that's an interesting, I have a little clip that's actually got some stuff with featuring, it's a Vinnie Politan clip. Let me just see if of course I'm going to be let me just check. Yeah, this one. Wait, it's the thing that burst into my eardrums as soon as we started streaming, and I was shocked. I think it's this one. Yes, it's this one. So we'll watch a little bit. But there's the potato himself. Wait, let me just make sure we're okay.
Doomsday cult. He created a following after publishing a series of books about his near-death experiences. He would often attend prepper conventions of people preparing for the end times. He was a Mormon who was kicked out of the church because of his extreme beliefs. While attending one convention, Daybell was approached by a blonde-haired, blue-eyed fan named Lori Daybell. The two hit it off and started having an affair. Both were married, but soon both their spouses would be dead, as would Lori's children, JJ and Tylee. Chad and Lori then quickly got married in Hawaii. Eventually, people in their lives caught on to what was happening. There was an intense investigation and a search for the missing children. They were found buried in Chad's backyard. Then the body of Chad's wife was exhumed. What followed were 2 trials and the convictions of Chad and Lori for the murders of JJ, Tylee, and Chad's wife, Tammy.
So just there, that's an odd little pause. So they're both, Chad's on death row, right? He received the death penalty.
And Lori would be there too if it weren't for the fact that the state in her case made a mistake with discovery, and the punishment or the penalty for the state not including all discovery was that the death penalty was taken off the table for her.
Right.
And that's interesting because the hearing that I was at Tuesday morning, it seems like the state failed to provide discovery in this case too. And it's just conspiracy to commit murder here, so I don't think the death penalty was even on the table. But state, come on, what are you doing? Just disclose everything.
It's
Anyway.
It's interesting. It is a moot point because she's serving 3 consecutive life sentences.
Right.
So Sherry Berry asks, does Arizona have the death penalty?
They do, but I think this is conspiracy to commit first-degree felonious murder, and I don't think the death penalty applies in this case. I don't think. But I'm not a legal expert.
No, neither. I believe you're right. It has to be other contributing factors like the age of the victim, being very young or very old, and I think that pushes things into death penalty region. But so we'll watch a little bit more of that, just a little bit more, just to get a bit more background. I'm sure mostly everybody here in chat, but helpful.
Lori is now in Arizona awaiting another murder trial.
So just her walking in there, and Joe, you sent me a clip of the body cam footage of Lori out the front of the rented property where Charles Vallow was shot and killed. And you're interested in her demeanor, her flirtatious demeanor. Here you see Lori walking into court with that exact same. Look at her. She does a flick of the hair.
Followed were 2 trials and the convictions of Chad and Lori for the murders of JJ, Tylee, and Chad's wife, Tammy. Lori is now in Arizona awaiting another murder trial for the shooting death of husband number 4, Charles Vallow. And tonight, we take a listen to a jailhouse phone call that will make your jaw drop.
Thanks, Vinny. Very dramatic. So Joe, you weren't embroiled in keeping on top of this case from back in the Hawaii days. This was more a recent thing when the trials were happening with Defense Diaries.
Yeah, it was just more of an interesting case to me, and obviously because of my background, I was interested in that aspect to it, but not surprised by any of it. Not surprised at all by another cult thing coming out offshoot from the Mormon Church. But my son lives out here in the Phoenix area, so I came out to winter with him. And right at the exact same time that her December hearings were taken off. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to go down to downtown Phoenix and check it out. And happened to sit in the front row right behind the defense table. And she was led out in handcuffs in her orange jumpsuit and her smile and her casual nature that is just totally inappropriate for somebody who has murdered her spouse and children. I mean, it just it's so creepy, and it's fascinating.
Do you, when you're in the proximity with Lori, because it's now been a couple of times, right, where you've been in the
three times now, yes,
a few times, yes. Other than that inappropriate sort of she's almost flippant, and it's very disrespectful. Do you get a vibe of like evil energy from her, or not so much?
Nope, not at all. But she wouldn't make eye contact with me, so I can't give you a full evaluation. She studiously, the first 2 hearings in December, she studiously ignored the people in the gallery. But for this hearing, it was odd because they made us sit on either the right side or the left side. The right side if you're for the prosecution, and absolutely I am in this case, and the left side if you're for the defense. So to start, we were all on the right side. But then there were a couple of people that came in and sat down on the left side behind the defense table. And when she came out, there was a gentleman sitting there that she actually made eye contact with and had a really brief conversation with. Like, she said one sentence to him and he said one sentence back, type of thing. So I don't know if that was like her Mormon bishop that has been to see her in jail. I don't know who he was. I'm sure there's somebody out there that does, but that was just kind of odd. Like the left side of the guy. It's like the groom's family sits on this side, the bride's family sits on this side, and there's nobody on the bride's family.
Yikes. Sav wonders, how did you manage to get in the courtroom with such a high profile case?
That's a really, really good question. The first two hearings in December, there was almost nobody there, but that's where I met another true crime person who is associated with the families. This time the gallery was almost full. There's like 30 something seats in the gallery, and it was almost full this time. Like by the time we got there, the right side was already filled up. So people were filling in the left side, and they didn't know the rules that if you're not for the defense, you shouldn't sit on the left. But I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule, so it doesn't matter. But yes, the gallery was almost full this time. And when the trial actually starts, so they're going to hold jury selection in a bigger courtroom in what they call the South Tower, which has a lot more seats in the gallery. But when it comes for the actual trial time, it may be a challenge to find a seat in there, which is kind of PTSD triggering for me, because I was in the Delphi trial, and to get a seat there, you had to show up on the courthouse lawn at 3:30 in the morning and stand in 36-degree weather for 4 hours to get a seat in the courtroom there. And even then you weren't guaranteed a seat in the courtroom. But they're gonna air this on TV, so I'm hoping that it won't be quite such a circus. I'm hoping. But yeah, there were seats available. I was there first in line this time, just to make sure. I got there at 7:30 in the morning. They didn't open the doors until 8 o'clock to the courtroom until 8 o'clock. But I was first in line this time. We'll see what happens in April.
Yes, goodness. Yes, because the voir dire is 31st of March or thereabouts. Is that right?
Well, they want what they're doing on the 31st is they send out juror questionnaires, and then they get the juror questionnaires back, and they will start going through them on the 31st without jurors present, but then they will start bringing jurors in on April 1st for actual voir dire. Yes, voir dire.
Voir dire. I've got Sherry. I'll hold your question for a moment, Sherry. So then obviously, because Lori is representing herself, so she has to address the court. How does she seem, and has she improved in her communication with the court, or what do you get the feeling from her ability, I guess?
I thought she did a decent job. I really did, like representing herself. Like, if you remember Darrell Brooks from the Waukesha Christmas trial, he was just a shit show. And
Yeah.
she's much better than that. She's much more respectful to the court. She's much more on task. She cited a couple of cases in her responses on Tuesday morning. And so, yeah, I think she's capable. I don't think she's as smart as she thinks she is, but I think she's capable.
They all think they're smarter than they actually are, those crazy narcissists, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, Sherry Berry asked, I know Chad was excommunicated. Is Lori?
I have no idea. I don't think so, because I think there's still a bishop of the church that is visiting her in jail. I think that's pure speculation. I have no proof or evidence, but just in the back of my mind, I think she may still be a member of the church.
Yeah, I feel like that's correct. I believe it was in one of your conversations with Kresha, where she mentioned that whereas Chad was kind of brought into court by way of, like the felons access. Lori seemed to be breezed into her court proceedings with almost like the air of a queen. Am I misremembering that?
Nope, that's accurate. Yeah.
So then that begs the question, do you think there? I'm sure there is. There are connections in the judicial system and the Church of the Latter-day Saints, and might that be that she's getting special treatment because she knows people in high places in those organizations?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. No, I mean, the judicial system, especially in Maricopa County, is going to be completely separate from the church. So her having her bishop there sitting in the gallery is just a completely him thing. Like if that's who he was, then he chooses to go and visit her in jail when he does. And because he's, clergy, he gets access to her. And then it would be his personal choice to come in and sit in the gallery. If that's who he was. I'm not sure that's who he was, but I just get the feeling that may be who he was.
So then do you think her ostensible special treatment is that, and pardon my phraseology here, but that kind of that pussy power, that flirtatious sparkle that she has? Do what could explain her getting, and then Chad's like a potato?
I have no idea. I think her special treatment, is just her thinking that she deserves it. But from Maricopa County, she's not getting any special treatment. Like,
no,
if you
right.
saw,
I think,
yeah, if you saw her hair on Tuesday morning, it was a mess. Like, that's the one thing that I've been impressed with, if you will, from a lot of her hearings, is her hair has just been fantastic. Like, how are you in jail for all of these years and you come into court and your hair is just like, the curls here? But Tuesday morning, it was a hot mess. Her hair was a hot mess Tuesday morning. She had it pulled up in the thing on top, and she's probably got to get up really early to come into court, to be there at 8:30. She's probably got to get up at like 6 or 6:30 in the morning.
I think it may even be earlier for being in court, depending on where she's being housed versus the courthouse.
Right.
Pokemon Shelley says she had bedhead this time.
Yes,
and
yes, she did.
and sloppy bed sock looking things. I was quite fascinated to see the socks she had. I don't know. She is a red hot mess. Shall we watch that? So basically everybody knows. Well, not everybody. I presume most people know that she is, as we said before, serving 3 consecutive life sentences for the brutal murders of her daughter Tylee, her adoptive son JJ, and Tammy Daybell. But this one now is this trial upcoming is for the conspiracy to commit Charles Vallow. Apologies, I have got a migraine, so some of my words are coming out all over the place. You said to take this clip from oh wait, no, this is wait. Here we go. This tab instead. Now let me just get us back into this. So, from about 3 minutes, did you say?
Yeah.
Joe?
So yes. So this is the body-worn camera of the Chandler Police Department officers, like street officers, responding to the call that Alex Cox placed to 911. Alex Cox being her brother, at the house in Chandler where Lori was living with JJ and Tylee, that her estranged husband Charles, who was living in Houston at the time, was actually paying for. And they had been there a few weeks, not a long time, but a few weeks. And he was coming in from Houston. Charles was coming in from Houston to visit with the kids, to get time with the kids. And she had called Alex the night before and said, Alex, her brother, come stay with me. I know that Charles is coming over in the morning, so come stay with me. We don't know much more than that from the texts, but it's just interesting that she would have her brother come and stay the night with her before Charles was coming in town. Charles comes in town. He goes in the house. There's some kind of a brouhaha. and Alex shoots Charles to death inside this house. And
Can
the
you
kids are inside
elaborate
the house when it happened.
can you elaborate a little bit on that brouhaha for the viewers? The
So we
alleged
know,
brouhaha?
we know that Tylee, who we see right here in this picture, Tylee had a baseball bat that she slept with in her house, which is odd. If the only people in the house are your mom and your adopted brother and Alex, why do you have a baseball bat that you're sleeping with in your house? That's a question that has come up. But Alex, when Charles comes in the house to pick up JJ to take him to school, there's an argument, and I'm not clear on whether the argument was with Lori or if it was with Alex, but it ends up being between Charles and Alex. And Alex's claim is that Charles took the bat from Tylee and whacked him in the back of the head, and that's why Alex shot Charles. Now, if you watch the interview room interview of Alex, you can see the smack on the back of his head, and there's just a little trickle of blood. And you know, Charles, now deceased, was a minor league baseball player. And I just have a really, really hard time believing that somebody who was a minor league baseball player that whacks you on the back of the head leaves just a little cut and a little trickle of blood. It strains credulity. That's a tough phrase to
Yeah.
make for me.
Yeah, that's always a tough phrase for me. Okay,
So Lori takes the kids. She takes JJ and Tylee. She takes them to Burger King. We actually have the footage of her going through the Burger King drive-thru with the kids. She's gone for an hour while the police are responding to this. And we don't know for sure that Alex called 911 immediately. There are people that say that it took him like 45 minutes to call 911. So maybe she was gone longer than an hour. Maybe it was like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. But when she gets back, this is the body-worn camera footage of the officer in talking to her, being the mother of JJ and Tylee and the wife of the deceased laying dead in her house right now.
Right. Before we press play, I remember when, again, with one of your talks with Kresha, I think the most recent one, and the chat, if you haven't watched Joe's series of conversations with Kresha, Kay and Larry Woodcock's daughter, aunt to Tylee and JJ, not aunt by marriage, not by birth to Tylee, but to JJ, she was his biological aunt. She mentioned how at some point during this this footage, Lori insisted that Tylee go back into the home where Charles, slain body lay, to get Lori's handbag. And I was struck by the fact that, sidebar, when I was 14, I lived in another city, but we had a 5.5 on the Richter scale earthquake. And my family home was in the epicenter of that earthquake. And so we had a very old home, and my mother and I were home. Sidebar, my mother is quite the raging narcissist. And we raced outside after the earthquake. It was pretty wild. And my mother was hysterical with, oh my God. And she's like, we're going to die. The whole house is going to fall down. And then she said to me, Lisa, go back inside and get my sunglasses for me. It's very bright and glary out here. So the things narcissistic mothers will do to their teenage daughters just because they are so self-absorbed. That was just, I found that I was like identifying with that story myself. But let's watch a bit of this.
Oh, gotcha.
We just moved in here.
Gotcha. How long have you guys lived there?
I'm sorry.
How long?
And Joe, tell me if and when you want me to pause so you can comment, because I know there's stuff here that you found very interesting with regards to LDS and Lori and her demeanor.
You lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us very well.
Gotcha.
Like,
See that right there, right there,
Are you working at all?
right
Yeah,
there.
I know.
Okay.
That's just hi neighbor. Your husband was just shot to death in your house, and you can be like that flippant. Like, we just moved here a couple of weeks ago, and hi neighbor.
Let's
You
watch
know,
that.
obviously she's talking about the police presence outside their home, but it's like that smile that she has and just that flippant nature, and it's just so
It's so
disturbing to me.
it's disturbingly inappropriate for what's just unfolded,
There,
regardless of how what the actual turn of events was inside the house. Her husband is dead. Charles Vallow is dead at the hands of someone. Her teenage daughter is there, Tylee. That's Tylee there. May she rest in peace. And this is what she says to the cops.
Arrive.
Does your husband live here or no?
No, he lives in Houston.
Gotcha.
We just moved in here a few weeks ago.
Gotcha. How long have you guys lived here?
I'm sorry?
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors took the last time.
Gotcha.
Like, hi neighbor, sorry.
Are you working at all?
No.
Okay. And you're still about 5'6", 120?
The officer then gets some
There's
personal information.
no
from
grief. There's no grief. There's no shock. There's no.
No shock, right?
I mean, somebody yeah, it's completely outside the norm of what you would expect from someone in that situation. Completely outside the norm, which is par for the course for her. That's how she behaves in court too. She's been convicted and sentenced to 3 life sentences and on trial for 2 more. One right now for Charles Vallow, and then Brandon Boudreaux is coming up after that.
Oh, wow. So she's wow. Okay, so we'll watch a bit more.
Tylee.
Blonde, too. You guys, I'm going to list you as a blonde young lady here. And then blue eyes? Yeah, very blue eyes. That's not under debate.
Wait,
Officer
what?
Finally,
I didn't remember hearing that before. Why is the officer saying to her, "You have very blue eyes"? Is he saying that to Tylee, or is he saying that to Lori? He may be saying that to Tylee.
It is to
Okay.
Tylee.
information from Tylee.
Blonde, too. You guys, I'm going to list you as a blonde young lady here. And then blue eyes? Yeah, very blue eyes. That's not under debate.
All right.
Do you think he's probably trying to just make her feel comfortable in a
Right.
very
Exactly. Yes.
uncomfortable situation?
Officer
Yeah.
finally goes to debrief detectives that have just arrived on scene.
Wife, husband got into a verbal argument. Brother steps in, says, just get at some point, the niece grabs the bat and is poking her dad. Dad takes the bat away. They decide to leave. Everyone leaves. There's a son, too, a younger son. Her son, he's not here either. So wife who lives here, her daughter, her son, they all live.
So, Joe, the officer just said he was referring to JJ. JJ's not here either. It's understood that Tylee was the first to be murdered by those people, a group, I would suggest, not just Charles and sorry, oh my goodness, not just Chad and Lori et al. So do you know where JJ was at this point? Obviously, because this was before any of the further murders. Was
At this
he
point in the
spending
body
time-
cam? You mean at this
Yeah.
point in the body cam? Yeah, she dropped him off at school.
School? That's right, school. And then they went to Burger King?
So
Was
they
that
went to
where-
Burger King first to get breakfast, and then she dropped him off at school, and then eventually made her way back to the scene of the crime with Tylee.
But also, and you mentioned before that purported possible 45 or so minutes between the shooting incident and the police being called. But then also, isn't it so that apparently Lori says she did hear the gunshot and she just went anyway to drop off JJ to school?
Yeah, no, the Charles gets shot, and she takes JJ and Tylee and just leaves Alex there with her dead husband.
Gosh.
And leaves him to call 911. And we've watched that 911 tape more than once. And he admits, I shot him on the 911 call. He says, I shot my brother-in-law.
And he's eerily blasé about the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Detached, right? Yes.
Detached. Yes. 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 Truth Seeker says, I remember that acting as if nothing was going on. Just wild. All right. So is there more in this? Is there more in this video of Lori?
Not we can be done with this, yeah.
Okay, okay. So now allegedly they argued over the phone. Joey says calm. Yeah, he was calm. It was beyond calm. Alex Cox's phone call was detached is a really good word. He wasn't seeming to engage in any of it. It wasn't just that he was calm and speaking to the 911 operator. He was kind of like a little distracted. Well,
Well, he had his narrative. He said,
exactly.
I shot my brother-in-law in self-defense. Like he said that on the 911 call. He said in self-defense. And that's actually one of her defenses that she's going to use in the trial is quote unquote self-defense argument, which wait, Alex is dead now. He's not the one on trial. How are you arguing self-defense on your behalf, lady? Like how is your brother shooting your husband self-defense for you? It makes no sense.
Particularly, and even if Alex was still, and I suppose we should explain that for people. But even if Alex were still alive today, because he's not, Alex Cox passed away suddenly, and I believe very suspiciously, but apparently by natural causes. Even if he was around to be on trial as well, that's not how self-defense goes. As soon as you retreat. He went into the room apparently to retrieve the firearm. Suddenly it's premeditated because you've made a choice to.
Right. And the officer, I think it was the officer on scene, actually asked him, well, why, when you went to your room, didn't you just close the door and call 911? You know, why are you going to your room to get a gun instead of go to your room to retreat and just call 911? You know, if you feel like you're in danger. Yeah.
So speaking of, Pammy says sus causes. I don't remember the details, but something to do with a pulmonary embolism. Is that
Yep.
right, Alex?
Yes. Yeah. He had blood clots he was found with blood clots in his lungs. And I actually have the medical examiner's report on that. And I had someone that we know take a look at it and who is a medical examiner. And they're like, I don't see anything like out of the ordinary on here in all of the toxicology reports, which is kind of striking in and of itself, because what is a 51-year-old male with nothing out of the ordinary in his toxicology and autopsy report just keel over one day? But it's possible. It's possible. But Joe Ryan, who is Tylee and Colby's dad, also passed away and was found to have passed away of natural causes. Nothing suspected going on there. That's husband number 3 passed away, and I think he was cremated. So we can't, we can't pull him back up and do another examination of his body there. But he's, how many dead husbands does she have to have for people to be like, what?
And while Alex was her brother, not her husband, they did, by all accounts, have a rather, you alluded to it in the beginning, that the Cox family had a highly sexualized sort of culture within their family unit. There's a lot of talk that there was weird shit going on with them.
Yeah, there's a weird vibe. And Alex did a lot for his sister that most brothers would not do for their sister. Like unaliving your husband and your kids. And his cell phone pinged around Chad Daybell's property around the time when the kids were disposed of on Chad's property.
Yes. And wasn't there some text messages also in that time frame? I believe that.
Yes. Yeah.
Called like a summonsing almost.
Yep.
to be there. And also, sadly, I believe, am I right in remembering there was a photograph or witness testimony of Alex carrying JJ upstairs in his pajamas that night.
Right. That was in the apartment in Rexburg. That wasn't on Chad's property.
No,
But
because yes.
yeah. So Alex left with JJ, and when he came back with JJ appeared to be asleep on his shoulder. People don't know for sure that he was asleep at that point in time, but he was out one way or another that night.
It's such a comprehensive and terrifying and horrifying web of victims that just I mean, I don't want to use this term, but the body count is just astronomical for these people, and it's quite horrifying. Now I do want to get to more victim centric stuff, but first, just recently, it was aired very recently in the last 10 days or 2 weeks that Lori did do an interview with Dateline's Keith Morrison, which she requested, right? She
Yes.
wanted that interview. Now, we don't have the Dateline because nobody needs a copyright strike, but I do have, let me just, so this is an interview. This is an interview with I'm going to say a young woman, but she's younger than me. So everybody who's younger than me is young, right? From KTVB, an interview with Keith Morrison prior to I think it was probably the eve of the Dateline special being aired. So let's hear a little bit from Keith, and there are a few clips in this.
Why is she speaking? This was Lori's first TV interview. Why is she speaking now?
She has been wanting to for some time, I think. She probably wanted to now because she would like to get a certain story out there in the public before the next trial, which is the one in which she is charged with killing or participating in the killing, conspiring to kill her husband, Charles, and conspiring to kill the husband of her niece. And those trials are coming up. She will represent herself, and I think she just as a self-appointed attorney for herself, she has decided that she should say something in public on Dateline. She's been talking to Dateline for some time. She's finally done it.
Okay, so it's my understanding she's kind of always wanted to be on Dateline.
Well, I didn't know this, but she has told others that she wanted to talk to me, and I was pleased to talk to her. Yeah.
Okay.
Joe, you've watched the Dateline special, I presume. I haven't.
I have, yes.
I've been watching a little bit of Colby Ryan, who is Lori's oldest son, and he did a very careful sort of skid through, just going over the parts where Lori was speaking. Interesting. Was it interesting to you that there wasn't actually that much, by all accounts, of the interview with Lori herself?
Absolutely. Her actual interview time in that hour and a half is maybe 15 minutes. So I'm wondering, and lots of us are wondering, if she just totally tried. Well, we saw her try and steer the conversation to her narrative. And I'm wondering if Dateline just was only able to pick out fractions of that were airable, that were just, able for the public, to be public consumption. And the rest of it is just her with her narrative.
And she was quite combative by all accounts. Let's watch a little bit more.
Yeah.
She felt that she had a story that she wanted.
It's not very loud. Sorry, I can't boost it.
And I'm not sure she was happy with the way it went, but we'll see.
Okay. So you went down to Arizona, obviously. How long was the interview? Were there any time constrictions with the jail? What was that experience like?
There usually are, as you probably know. Jails will give you a half an hour maybe, or an hour at the most, and you feel lucky. But they gave us 90 minutes. But that was to include all the setup time. And so we would have probably a little less than an hour to talk to her. But it turned out that the jail staff, all the way from the top to the bottom, was also keenly interested in this. And they gave us extra time, not extra time in the interview, but extra time to get organized for us. So we were set up in a jail.
Let me see. I've got another. I think there's one that's got some footage of Lori. I do have a bunch of clips here. Yes, there we go. So let me just swap to this one. It's a much shorter interview, so that it's also with Keith. But wait.
Oh, we're back now with a preview of tonight's all-new Dateline and an exclusive interview with a woman at the center of a story that captivated the world.
Many may know Lori Vallow as Mommy Doomsday. She's the Idaho woman convicted of killing her 2 kids, as well as conspiring to kill her husband's previous wife. So now she's in jail, about to go on trial for the murder of her 4th husband in Arizona.
And that's where Dateline's Keith Morrison caught up with her for her first television interview. We're going to talk with Keith in just a moment, but first, a preview.
When someone like convicted killer Lori Vallow agrees to an interview, there's no way around it, you wonder.
Hello, come on in.
He's giving attention to someone so
Did you see that look in her eyes when she saw the camera? She's like almost flirting with the camera. As soon as she sees it, like she looks up and she gets this look on her face, this like, haha, I'm on camera.
When someone like convicted killer Lori Vallow agrees to an interview, there's no way around it.
Right there. Did she wink? Did she just wink at the camera? Miss Shorty, you're muted. Miss Shorty, you're muted.
God, yes, she winks. She does wink.
What the actual?
Yeah,
have we cussed on your channel yet today? What the actual fuck?
When someone like convicted killer Lori Vallow agrees to an interview, there's no way around it.
Right there.
What? Come on.
So that was why I found it interesting when you wanted to, when she says, hi neighbors, in that body cam footage. And then there's that footage before that was in the Vinnie Politan special where she's walking into court, like tossing her hair. And then here she is. It's just her modus operandi, right? Let me one more time, because yikes. And then we'll let it play a little bit.
When someone like convicted killer Lori Vallow agrees to an interview, there's no way around it, you wonder.
Hello, come on in.
He's giving attention to someone so notorious who loves the limelight so much. A good thing. After all,
you're the most hated mom in America.
I heard that. And we all know what the media does. And they exaggerate everything and they make stuff up and they twist things around. So I don't know how it became what it is today. It's amazing to me. And I don't really know.
Are you misunderstood?
Absolutely. How do you know a person if you never talked to them in 5 years? How do you know anything about them? How do you know anything about their life? About how it really is?
5
because
years
we saw you
is how
on
long.
trial, lady. That's how we know about your life. Evidence, like facts were brought in.
The gaslighting of it all. This is this standard, narcissistic. How did she get a curling iron? Asks Pierre. Hi, Pierre. Good to see you. I don't know if she's a curling. That might be a curling iron, but
I've heard that there are methods that they have in jail to curl your hair without a curling iron. Something about socks, maybe.
Yes, you could do socks. Basically, like they can roll. It's not just in jail. I've seen people do it. Like you roll your hair up in even bed sheets or a towel or something and create quite good curls. She's Colby Ryan. Someone asked him. Someone asked him, has she had a stroke? And he said, no. I think maybe her Botox is all worn off, which is why her face is starting to look. Lori's my age, within a couple of months. So
Long Lori Vallow's life has been behind bars. She burst into the spotlight in early 2020 when the world learned that her two children, 16-year-old Tylee and 7-year-old JJ, had disappeared. Well, she lolled around in the sun in Hawaii.
Hey, Chad and Lori, it's Dateline. How are you?
With her newly married fifth
Now-
husband, Chad Daybell.
Pause for a moment. That voice was Nate Eaton, right?
Nate Eden, I got to meet him on Tuesday morning. I'm a huge fan. I have 2 of his t-shirts that say life goal, not to have my mugshot appear on East Idaho News.
Right. Yes.
What
So
amazing work though. What amazing journalistic work though, to track them down all the way to Hawaii.
and to get them, not just to track them down, but to actually be right there. Like, that's some amazing journalism. I was interested when you informed me offline that Nate is actually a member of the Latter-day Saints,
Yep.
which I found. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I don't know that there's any elaborating except the fact that there are people associated with the families of the victims that are not a huge fan of. At times he seems to maybe protect the church a little bit in some of his coverage. Like he will like go out of his way to say, hey, this is Chad and Lori, this has nothing to do with the Mormon church. And not everybody agrees with that perspective, that it has nothing to do with the Mormon church.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Mormon church, because, and like I said, my son and I had this discussion and it made me think about it a lot. The Mormon church has a cultish, and is considered a cult by a lot of people. Like a lot of mainstream Christians are like, the Mormon church is evil. It's a total cult and it's not Christian and they don't worship Jesus and they don't know Jesus. And there are arguments that you can make for that. That's fine. But a lot of Mormons believe they are Christian, but fundamentally, because of the way that we're raised and we're indoctrinated in the church and we're raised to believe that it's the only true church, and we have all of these rules and guidelines to follow, and we have to date only members and all of that. I believe that it lends itself to the weird, evil offshoot cults. And I don't believe that the Mormon church is necessarily weird, evil offshoot, but the series I'm doing with Kresha is like opening my eyes. Like there is some evil shit going on inside the church. There is.
And Kresha brings receipts too. She has dedicated her life to educating herself and deep diving from a standpoint of no understanding really of Mormonism, right? So honestly, chat. I think that if you haven't already, go and watch part 1, part 2, and part 3, and there'll be at least another part to it because we've still got a few more pages of that Glenn.
Right. Well, after the Glenn Pace memo, we have to get into the Underground Railroad. So, yeah, keep your eyes open for that. She's going to teach us about, and this isn't the slavery Underground Railroad. This is the Mormon victims Underground Railroad. That's supposed to be a good thing and ends up not being a good thing. So there'll be a part 4 and a part 5 and hopefully a part 6.
Actually, that brings me to you. In your last episode with Kresha, you said something about, and I'm going to paraphrase, and I'm probably going to butcher it, and you might not remember it, but it caught my attention. You spoke of, I think someone in the chat might have said, like, or perhaps Kresha did, about ridding the world of evil, and that it was you. You said it's impossible to rid the world of evil. It's basically a fool's errand because you're never going to stamp out all of evil. And I found that an interesting comment because, I mean, arguably Lori, Chad, and whoever else was actively involved in all of that. And I think we can agree there was more than just those two and Alex Cox. I think Melanie, which is Melanie
Gibb.
Yes.
Well, and the niece too, Melanie Boudreau too.
Right. But I mean, to their mind, they believed, one would assume, that they were ridding the world of evil also. I found that really interesting. It's all about perspective and their delusions their evil was such that they believed that by, the dark and the light shade or ratings and like it's just a wild thing.
It is, and it's all foreign to me in the way that I was raised in the Mormon church. I was never taught anything about dark and light and zombies like that. Never crossed my mind in my 17, 18 years being raised in the church. I never heard anything like that. And the multiple lives, I don't remember anything like that. That's all fringe belief. So I don't know, but what do you believe? Like
About light and dark, or no? I don't
No.
believe in that.
Yeah, and multiple lives?
No, I don't. Not in terms of coming back in an earthly body over and over again. I believe in the universe and not reincarnation. I feel like we have one chance on this earth, and one needs to do one's best to be the best human that they can in our earthly bodies, and then that's it. I do believe in afterlife. I do believe that there is more to it than just the tangible here and now, but not in terms of reincarnation. I feel like that there's more in the beyond, whether that's heaven and hell, or whether that's just, I mean, I've personally had experience with my husband passed away when he was 27, and I very much felt his spirit leave at the exact time that he passed away. He was in surgery, and it was a visceral. I felt it, and in the week between his passing and he was buried. So between his passing and his funeral and being buried, I had a couple of instances that were very, without a doubt, my husband Robert still there around. So I guess that's my belief.
Wow.
Based on personal experience. Yes.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Very. So I have told this story once before, but so my sister-in-law, Robert's younger sister by 10 years, and myself and my father and their father were in the waiting room while Robert had a cerebral aneurysm, and so he had to go in for surgery, and it was very traumatic. To me, it was very clear that it was medically would be a medical miracle were he to survive the surgery. It was classed as a giant aneurysm, which is a medical term for that he shouldn't have still been alive. So we were sitting in the waiting room, sort of awfully nervous and filled with trepidation and just dread. And I was sitting next to Kate, and we were sitting, and so there was a high window in a hospital waiting room up there, and all of a sudden I felt this sensation, I guess, that came into through my sort of chest to my heart, go all the way down to the pit of my stomach, and then feel it turn and come up and around, almost like butterflies, but a little stronger, and then up and out, and lifted my chin up and out and looked to the window, and I was like. And Catherine, who was only 17 at the time, because Robert and I were 27, she turned to me and she said, "Did you feel that?" And I was like, "What?" And and we looked at each other, and she felt the exact same thing as well. It was at 6:57, and that was the time that they called his death.
Oh my. I just got goosebumps, like for real. I've got goosebumps like all over.
And then they sent us away. They said, go and get some dinner. It was PM, 6:57 PM. Go and get something to eat. And nobody wanted to leave. We were just like wringing our hands with what's going on. And Kate and I knew it wasn't good. We went across to where the cafeteria was, and then as we stood there, like no one was hungry. Goodness me. And then suddenly the pastor, the religious representative, non-denominational, came running across the overhead walk bridge and said, "You have to come back. You have to come back." And we found out, and it was another hour or so before between that, it was about 8 p.m. where we got the news. But then when you said you had goosebumps, I went back home to our family home, and within a couple of days or nights, I can't remember time, what is it, when trauma, but I was in the bathroom where he had his initial grand mal seizures, which alerted us to the fact that he had this aneurysm, and it was the middle of summer, January in Australia, January, very, very hot. It was very hot, same as it is today now. And I was went into our little bathroom, and it was the middle of the day, and all of a sudden, and I have blonde but quite hairy arms. All of a sudden, with down here across my arm on a diagonal, I got this shock of my hairs on my arm stood up, and it felt like someone was touching on my arm, and the hairs on my arm stood up, and I brushed them a couple of times, and I wasn't cold. It was extremely hot. Brushed them, and they stood up, and I was just like, hi. So there's definitely
Wow.
something there afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
but I don't know about earthly bodies, and you know, don't Lori and Chad et al. Again say things like in their cult that Jesus's brother something Jesus came to Lori in jail in another earthly body, and there's sort of weird things going on there. I mean, weird. I shouldn't. I mean, it is.
Well, she claims Jesus has visited her in jail. I don't know what form he has, and I don't know who she's really talking to, but somebody's coming and talking to her. And she also claims that Chad has lived 31 lives and she's lived 21, but only 5 of them each are on this earth. So the other lives are on other planets somewhere, which is Mormon adjacent, because, and this actually goes back to the day that I knew that I couldn't continue down this path of the doctrine, that the Mormon doctrine. They teach that someday if you become an exalted being, like Lori claims she is, so if you follow all of the concepts of the church, if you follow all of the rules, if you do all of the things like getting, going on your mission, getting sealed in the temple to another Mormon member, and then eventually, all the things through life, you'll make it to the celestial kingdom. So they have like 5 levels of heaven, right? They have the telestial kingdom, the terrestrial, telestial is the lowest. I have to L. Telestial is the lowest, then the terrestrial is the middle heaven, and then the highest heaven is the celestial kingdom. And there are actually 3 levels of that. So our goal is to make it to the highest level of the highest heaven, the third level of the third tier of the celestial kingdom. And if you do that, then you will become a god, and you will spend the rest of eternity just populating your planets that you're the god over. So
that's hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, right? Right. And when I talked about that when I was a 19-year-old young man in Lafayette, Indiana, saying that out of my mouth to other people, I was like, no, I'm going to be a god someday. So, but that's like some of the higher teaching in the church. So they're hating me right now. They're like, they're going to kick me out of the church. Oh, wait, too late.
Right.
But yes, you will be a god someday of other planets, and you're going to spend the rest of eternity populating your planet that you're the god over with your.
See, that feels sacrilegious to me. And as I said at the start of the show, I was raised by 2 very atheist, non-believers, don't believe in anything, very science-based. But even I can understand that it feels sacrilegious to suggest that regular Joe Schmoe could will end up being a god someday. I really find that hard to wrap my head around. Really interesting.
Yeah. but that type of belief and that type of accepting that, like, you have to suspend disbelief to accept that as your religion and as your religious belief. So if you're willing to accept that and suspend disbelief to accept that, what else are you willing to suspend disbelief for? Light and dark
Absolutely.
and zombies, right?
Yes, there's a lot of buy-in there, which then comes back to that feeling of cultism, because once the members are eating out of the palm of the doctrine, what they're being told, then really there's everything's believable, right?
Yeah.
Because you're
And
brainwashed.
right. And the book Visions of Glory plays into Chad and Lori's journey. And I'm gonna do some deep dives into that book. I actually purchased off of Kindle. I had some qualms about that. Like, I don't want somebody getting my money, but on the other hand, we need to educate ourselves on some of this. So that is a book that Lori took with her to Chad's seminars, and according to Megan, she had it highlighted and dog-eared and was like, she was like
Wow.
deep into that book. And that is a book about near-death experiences.
Which is what Chad became famous for in his little world of his
Yes.
purported near-death experiences, which seem to grow in fantastical nature over the writings of his book, over his author career, which incidentally he couldn't sustain because nobody bought his books really, in the publishing house he had to fold, right?
Right.
Now, I mentioned that I want to get more. There's a tie in all of here. So Colby Ryan, I've mentioned him a few times. Who's Laurie's oldest son, who had already left the family home. I use that term loosely because Lori seemed to be quite transient and have no real roots anywhere, just going wherever. He has a channel. So chat if you're interested to hear more from someone who's lived in the home and under the horror of Lori Vallow. She would have been Lori Ryan back then, right? Because it's Colby Ryan. But he was outraged by the way, in her interview with Keith Morrison, the Dateline interview, Lori was very much, and also in her filings, she's very much seeming to bring Tylee, one of her, she's convicted for the murder of Tylee and JJ and Tammy. He was appalled by how she seemed to be, for want of a better term, throwing Tylee under the bus and trying to absolve her own guilt in some way. And so I wanted to play a little bit of, let me see if I can find it, of Colby. Wait, let me just get the start of it. This is just recently, 2 weeks ago, just after the interview, and he's a lovely young man, I think, from just watching a little bit of his stuff. But he wanted to talk about Tylee's relationship with Lori and Lori with Tylee, and to humanize her. And then Kresha has been doing a lot of that humanizing of JJ on your channel, right? So
Yes.
I think that's really important. Shelley Pokemon mentioned before the CARE acronym, and I victim-centered and empathy and things. So I don't really want to just make it all about a Lori freak show. I really appreciate you enlightening us as much as you can in just a little short amount of time about Mormonism and the beliefs you grew up with. Chat and viewers, if you would like to know more, do go to Joe Schmoe's channel, subscribe. We want to get him to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. I see big things for you in your YouTube journey, Joe. I'm not just saying that.
You're so kind.
I don't binge on everybody's content, Joe. I really don't. Like, your style is and your content is enthralling and so helpful. So if you want to know more about not just this case. You also cover Delphi stuff, right, Joe? And Coburger, among and cases that aren't even like not big cases. You do FOIA requests for all sorts of things, right?
I do. Yes, I do.
It's really refreshing. So I've got this here ready to go. I've just slid it back a little. So chat, this is very heartfelt. So he's speaking from the heart. This young man, his sister, Tylee was his sister, and then he sees his mother on Dateline, like really just she's just vile. I mean, he's grieved a lot. I understand from that whole and has a lot of guilt. He has a lot of survivor's guilt, a lot of guilt about what he maybe.
I like this. I like this guy. He's real. He's genuine, and he's raw.
Lovely.
Ooh,
I
yes.
I love him, Joe. I'm not going to lie, chat. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to see whether I can I don't know how open he is, receptive he is to talking to other channels, but I would love to interview Colby Ryan. I'd have to make sure I didn't have a migraine or those bloody idiot dogs around, because they can be very distracting, Joe. They're not here right now. Praise whichever Lord you believe in, or the universe. Let me see what I actually wait at the speed I had on 2x speed. No, 1.5. Yikes. Lovely man. I'll drop his channel into the chat, or maybe actually one of the mods. Could you please do his channel is called Scar Wars, as in SCAR, play on Star Wars, and then Colby L Ryan. No, Colby. Wait,
I'm gonna pull this up real quick.
Colby J Ryan. My bad.
Okay, so you guys won't see what I'm looking at real quick, but I'm gonna pull up the actual.
Hang on.
I'm gonna pull up.
So he's talking about some of her filing,
and she's not going to tell the truth. So this whole situation of what happened, well, we'll probably never know what happened. But the reason why this is upsetting to me, and one of the things that stuck out to me from the documentary, was Tylee having to be in that room, and then the conversation of whatever happened, whatever she had to experience, whether she was outside when it happened. But I remember probably one of the most angry I've ever been in my life is knowing that Tylee went back into the house to get my mom's purse for her and walk out. My mom sent Tylee, supposedly, into the house. So Tylee saw it, whether it's the corner of her eye, whether it was something of that nature. My little sister had to be in that environment, and then had to deal with the trauma that came with that, and got sent into the house.
I'm going to skip forward a little bit because I'm mindful of the
Yeah,
time.
and
Feral Friday and stuff. Yes.
be mindful that
You're right.
Colby is Tylee's big brother. They are biologically 100% brother and sister. So there are a lot of other unbiological things that went on with JJ's adoption and stuff. But Charles took them in. So their dad passed away, but Charles took them in, and Colby has nothing but good things to say about Charles, about what an amazing stepdad, or whatever you want to call him, he was to them. How amazing Charles was.
Yeah. This is one of my new favorite channels, and he's very much he's very upfront about his faith, and that he's not perfect, and that he struggles with his faith. And I love hearing all different perspectives on all things. He does seem to have a lot of women in his chat, and I understand that. He's a good-looking man, but then Lori was a very good-looking woman. But it doesn't matter what he looks like, because he's just so raw, like you said, Joe. So just trigger warning, chat.
It takes me back to the moment when Tylee was willing at 2 years old to say, yes, we can drive off the cliff. You know, it makes me wonder.
So pause that I came in at a random spot, but I know Kresh has spoken a lot about the fact that that in their offshoot, their weird stuff and the Glenn Pace memo, that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that some really awful stuff where children in that cult were then, and I presume probably now, told that they were, and trigger warning, told that they were likely to die, to be killed, and that they needed to pray for. Can you help me with my verbiage here, Joe? And then, and then when nothing happens, like just the trauma. So there's so much bad stuff, so much dark stuff.
Yeah, and so the Glenn Pace memo was back from the early 90s, so we can correlate it to what happened to JJ and Tylee from a ritualistic standpoint, but from the actual ritualistic abuse and how did they actually abuse them, I don't know. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure what people think happened, but they Kresha believes they were ritually abused, and there were some autopsy findings with Tylee that are disturbing, and kind of went into those a little bit with Lauren when I saw her at the hearing on Tuesday. We went out to lunch after, and I learned some things about the autopsy that I didn't know before that were very disturbing. So we didn't go into deep details, and we don't need to now, but
no,
it's disturbing. It's very disturbing.
So again, Chad, if you would like to know much more in depth, like hours and hours of fascinating, and it sounds minutia, and I mean that in the most glowing sense of the word. I don't mean tedium. I mean it's just riveting. Do go and watch Joe's series, 3 parts done so far with Kresha, digging into all this stuff, because you will be enlightened and horrified. And it's important to understand and to not keep this stuff in the shadows, in the darkness, right?
Yeah, bring it to light.
Bring it to light.
To be accepted and loved as everyone does. The thing is with that relationship is that my mom never gave that love. That love wasn't
to trigger warning, chat.
Offered. We didn't have the type of love that you need. I think any kid would tell you, I'd rather live in a cardboard box with my parents and feel loved.
Oh wait, it's
than
my
live
ears.
in a giant mansion
Sorry,
and
language.
be empty.
God damn it!
It's kind of a
pause.
an
I'm
extreme
watching
example,
it. You
but
aren't watching it. Go
anybody
back,
would
Lisa,
rather
go
take
back.
a
There's always
situation
one,
where
Joe. Joe, I feel your pain. Joey, I feel your pain, Joe, when you have, like, I was watching your thing about the Delphi, the defense releasing the bridge guy video, and you poor thing, I was like, oh, I'm with you the whole way here. It was tough. You did so well.
Get the audio to play. Come on.
Oh
she
my!
always got shrugged
Honestly,
off.
oh my goodness, Joe, I was doing my grocery shopping in Aldi, and I was like, "You've got this, man!" I was cheering for you on replay crew, going, "You've got this!" And Salty, your co-host, a lot of the time, Salty Salty Sleuth investigates. She was like, "Nope, can't hear it," and you're going, "I'm doing that."
And they were always fighting and arguing and having this back and forth bickering. And the end of the day, I didn't see that growing up. Like not that I didn't see it. I didn't understand and see it like I do now. I didn't get it. I didn't realize the dynamic, right? I just thought they just had problems with each other because of whatever. You don't know until you're older. I didn't see it till I was out of the situation later on. And I started talking to Tylee, and we started doing some type of therapy. And guess what? I was not a great therapist to her at that time, because I thought that she and my mom needed to make amends. I thought they needed to have a kumbaya moment.
So this young man, I think he's 28, maybe he's a little bit older. He's just about to have, or just had a baby with his beautiful wife, partner. No, I say it's wife. Anyway, he's just lovely. I did have a better spot, and then I played it, and you guys didn't hear it because it wasn't on the screen.
No, we heard the audio actually.
That I should have never
did
said.
you? Oh, good. So you heard the audio. Okay.
Yes.
So it wasn't as Okay.
to her because I should have listened to what her feelings were. And I'm getting this all out now because I'd like to be able to have you guys understand that Tylee just didn't have protection. She didn't have the love she needed. She didn't get any of those things. And she lived her life watching or having someone who's completely up and down in mood, running all over the place, moving you back and forth, and then basically just kind of giving you what you want, which as a kid, you're like, cool, like I can have this, I can get a car, whatever the case is. Like, that's cool. That doesn't ever make up for love. And the relationship now that I look at
Yes.
Bingo.
Yes.
He's got it. And
go ahead.
You can tell that he's got such guilt, such survivor's guilt. And
big brother guilt. And yes.
Yes. He actually literally says, I think at one point in time, I feel guilty for surviving this, for being the only one to survive this. But also right now, what he's talking about is the fact that Tylee and Lori just like butted heads all the time. And he felt like he should go to Tylee and be like, Tylee, can't you just get along with mom? Can't you just like back off just a little bit? But Tylee was outspoken, and Tylee didn't want to back off. And Tylee didn't want to put up with her mother's narcissistic bullshit. And he just wanted them to get along, and he's feeling guilt for that. Like to this day he does. And that's so genuine of him to acknowledge that. And it's also so heartbreaking.
It is so heartbreaking. So chat, I'll put, I don't think it is at the moment, but I will link that and all of the clips we've watched tonight into the description box afterwards. Joe, is there anything else that you wanted to speak of about any of this?
We could go on for hours and hours, but I'm dragging your numbers down.
No, you're not. No. You're really not. The numbers are good. They always go up and down. And considering that Feral Friday has started, I think we're holding quite well. Perhaps
let's jump over there then. Let's hop over to Feral Friday and just have a little bit of fun.
Let's do it. Thank you so much. I'll link all of those videos in the description box. If you want to know more, as I've said throughout, please go and subscribe to Joe Schmoe and watch some of that stuff. Binge on his morning coffee show. Morning coffee. Wait, tell me your name of you. I just watch it. I don't look at the thumbnail.
Morning Schmoe.
Morning Joe Schmoe. And usually with Salty, it's a pleasure to watch, and I'm mostly listening. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Absolutely. And chat, you've been brave with the heavy content, and I'm proud of you. And yeah, so let me just check before. Wait, so what I might do is I might say thank you, Joe, and then I'll sign off to chat, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Joe. Oh, what's happening there? He's going to be at Kick. Yes, Akasha. Yes. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Joe. Do subscribe if you're not already, and watch his stuff. Don't just subscribe and go, yep. Drawing. I'm going to do it tomorrow night, Joey. My brain, I'm migrained right out. We'll do it tomorrow night. So don't forget, tomorrow night, 5 Eastern. No, 6 Eastern, but that's the same time for me. Go to Kick and search Publicly Buzzed. Feral Fridays now. Thank you, Mr. Schmoe. Absolutely. Thank you, moderators. My beautiful friends. Thank you, chat. I'm going to go and lie down and try to sleep off this migraine because, my brain. I might stop in quickly to Feral Friday and say hi, but see you tomorrow night, huh? I love you all very, very much.
I love you all so very much. We had a blast just chatting and stuff. Things may have gone bit off the rails. Professional when all else fails. 'Cause chat is babe, so much to say. emotion and narcissistic twats. 'Cause chat is play, so much to say. Emotes and all the all caps out. May have been cheese, bit faster please. The time has come, Camp Shorty out. Community, just you and me. Occasionally, Buster and Poppy. It's a whole thing, Miss Shorty swing. Together we make each other happy. 'Cause chat is play.